welcome back to the channel. Delighted to have Keelan back with us on tonight. He's been on a few times this season. Always draws quite a good audience, and not just a country star, but a massive Liverpool fan. Also has a playing background in Liverpool as well, for his youth days. So quite a good time to have him on, because I was actually thinking coming on to the podcast this week, hoping something drops, a big story or something. I'll tell you what, there's 2 big stories dropped today, so plenty to discuss. And delighted Keelan's on West. We're going to be looking at Mbappe. Breaking news in the last couple of hours. Set to leave PSG. Looks nailed on to go to Real Madrid, but we're going to be getting Keelan's view on the money involved and a deal like this, despite it being a free transfer. Should Mbappe be looking to move to the Premier League and maybe take less money, being on the biggest league in the world, even possibly at Anfield? That seems to be the word. It never goes away. Very unlikely with the finances involved, but we'll be asking Keelan if he would like to see Mbappe running around at Anfield next season. We'll be looking back at the news today. Roy Hodgson has fallen ill during a training session and rushed out by paramedics to the hospital. This all around the time where he was expecting to be sacked. A very strange situation. We'll be discussing on all that, and if that had any impact on maybe the illness. Now he is doing quite well, so that is good news. We'll also be looking at Xabi Alonso this week. Was first time I've ever seen it. MNF moved away from the Premier League and done a whole piece on a coach from another league, and that was Xabi Alonso. Obviously, in relevance to him taking over at Liverpool next season. Going to be asking Keelan for his thoughts on Xabi, or the challenges he might face, and who else should Liverpool be looking at. And we'll finish off by looking ahead to the Premier League games, some big games this weekend, as we get into that final run. About 14 games or so left. So, Keelan, great to have you with us. How are you feeling? My dad's just saying country star ? But I'm sure you are. Gemma's going to improve it here. Gemma's on already.
Thanks for having me on again. I just a few big stories. All right. The Mbappe one, I suppose, straight away is probably the biggest one. In terms of world football, in terms of a name that's not Messi and Ronaldo, it's has to be Mbappe, really. So I think if I was Mbappe looking at the situation, I'd be looking at the options that Jude Bellingham also had, because he could have picked any team in the world that could afford him. But I think there's only really, I would love to say Liverpool. I really would.
Does playing for Real Madrid outweigh playing in the Premier League for you?
Yeah, it does. I think it used to be the Barcelona, but Real Madrid's consistency for forever really it's just the pinnacle of club football is Real Madrid, regardless of what anyone says. I think it's different if you're a diehard Liverpool fan or a diehard Spurs fan or whatever. I
hope they run around at Spurs again, and then maybe for an argument Spurs. Nolan's watching all the way from Australia. Callum's saying Vinicius Jr. plays off the left. Where would that leave Mbappe? Assuming he does go to Real Madrid, how do you think that would fare? Would Vinicius move on the striker? Would Mbappe move on the striker? Because I don't see any of them playing on the right, because they like to come on side, don't they? So that would be quite a conundrum, because you've got your 2 star players, and 2 star players with such big personalities, especially Mbappe. We've heard him causing trouble before. Would he settle not to be the star man?
I think regardless of Vinicius Jr. being there, Mbappe will be the star man.
And you've also got as well Jude Bellingham, so he's also rose to fame.
Yeah, look, but that's what Real Madrid are so good at doing. They're probably the only team in the world ever who's managed superstars the way they have, bar Ancelotti at AC Milan. There hasn't really been a team or a manager who's been able to cope with mega stars other than Sir Alex Ferguson, Ancelotti, and maybe Pep Guardiola if you want to talk. But I think it's good. It'll be a good signing for him in terms of the revenue it'll bring in over a longer period of time. But also in terms of the rotation of the squad and the front line, I think Vinicius is more capable playing on the right, left. So's Mbappe, and you also have Rodrigo, who's more than capable of playing up front and on the right or left. So, I mean, you're not stuck for options. But the only thing that I kind of, which I thought about might impact the deal, was when they signed Endrick. And I think for a young talent coming through, and also that don't, they've got Arda as well, who's coming through as well, and I know he's more of a midfield player.
Brahim Diaz has been flying this year too.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many players, but I suppose that's just the nature of Real Madrid. Is they're built for success. They're built for the best stars in the world.
11 Galacticos, as they say.
That's it. I mean, it's there's no doubt that they're the biggest club in the world, best team in the world. I think they'll be favourites for the Champions League without Mbappe this year as well.
Do you feel you have to bring players on like Mbappe, like Bellingham? Have the options of Vinicius, Rodrigo, some of their older players are still there. They compete with someone like Man City, because other than Barcelona under Pep, there hasn't been another team that's dominated for this long. You think about Man City winning so many leagues in England. It's been a long time since a team's dominated this division so consistently. If they won the league this year, they'll be the first team they ever won it 4 years in a row. It would be silly to roll out another treble if they were to go and do it again this year, or even a double, won the Premier League, won the Champions League. You think that puts Madrid under serious pressure to bring in the best players to bridge that gap?
I think the pressures from the media, especially in Spain, and Gareth Bale talked about it in his time over there. No matter how successful he was on the pitch, if you don't play along with the media, then you're going to be absolutely axed out of it. And I think the expectation of Real Madrid fans and the media to compete with the Premier League, you have to sign those players and you have to show that you're able to compete. I mean, the Champions League, there's no better team than Real Madrid, but I think if they signed Mbappe, I think that would push them closer to Man City to compete, more regular and beat them really. But I mean, there's only two teams in the world that's going to go head to head in that, and that's Man City, Real Madrid.
No, his contract does expire, but we're hearing it's not that easy. There's going to be a lot of commitments he has to do. Now, there's no contractual agreement of a fee, but PSG are expecting Mbappe to keep his word that there will be money given that he would be given that would be given to PSG. I mean, that's not guaranteed because we've seen with Mbappe the money he's on is close to 200 million euros a year. We're here, circa. So a lot of money. PSG are saying it. I suppose they're saying all the right things that this will give them an opportunity to bring our players on. Split the cost of the wages. But I mean, if they made a massive error here, they've let probably the most prized asset in football walk out the door for very little. What would he be worth if he was on a 2 or 3 year contract? If we think about Harry Kane going last year for 100 million, Declan Rice going 105, Caicedo 115. This is probably 150 to 200 million pound player they're letting off their books for basically just getting them off the wage bill.
I think the thing with Mbappe is his attitude and his ego. I think that's a big problem. I think Al Khalifi wanted to keep him to build, to really get his project going, and that was the Champions League. But I don't understand how there would be money involved if he leaves on a free. I think it's a big mistake, yes. But then again, Mbappe and his representatives have been very, very cute and very smart in how they've went about, his loyalty to PSG. And I think, it's very easy for him to turn around and say, look, well, I gave you this many years at the club. I helped probably bring in, maybe Neymar and Messi, to play alongside. Maybe he helped in getting them there. But it's probably the most complex deal in football history, really.
It will be the most complex. Definitely Bosman free transfer or a player out of contract. It won't be easy. I'm expecting this to drag on. I don't see 1st of July Mbappe holding up that Madrid shirt. It's funny because I think PSG would have liked to shift them last year, but the problem was Madrid didn't have the finances because they'd signed Bellingham. And they did try to shut them to Saudi Arabia. They accepted that €300 million bid. They were willing to pay Mbappe more money than God. Mbappe didn't want to go to the Saudi Arabian League, which looks a very good choice now because we've seen players that have went there, haven't enjoyed it. So maybe they were kind of forced into this situation. But I think you made a great point about Khalifa, the president. They went down that route of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe, star players. But it hasn't worked. They bar one Champions League final, all this money spent and very little to show for it. And maybe even getting to the final isn't an achievement when you spent that much money. But it looks like they're going away from that strategy now. They're going to go down the route of trying to produce more of a team, a united team that can maybe not has the best player in the world, but obviously good players, but not that sort of glamour name that controls the club. Because we've seen it at Barcelona with Messi, even towards the end that wasn't working. And we've seen it with Ronaldo at times at clubs, at Man United recently, Juventus, and we've seen it with Mbappe. All these players, they're the best in the world, but they're at clubs that haven't been competing in Europe. So do you think PSG have looked at that and thought we need to try and change our strategy to compete with the likes of Man City and even the likes of Liverpool? Because although they've got star players, you would say they're much more of a team. We've seen it in recent weeks. Liverpool have lost Salah and they've still won games. I think if Mbappe was to get injured now for PSG, they wouldn't have a hope in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think the problem with PSG is because they have so money, they thought that they could just put the best team in the world together and just go and win everything, and that's not. I think the best thing about that is, or the best example that I can give is probably Klopp coming to Liverpool with the finances that he has. You don't go out and buy superstars, you mix superstars, you build the foundations of it that carries on, so it's easier to purchase players who are right to fit the club and the team. That was never the case with PSG.
Yeah.
And
Mbappe always had more power than the manager.
That was it. There's no player in the world who sits at a respectable club and is more important than the manager or the bosses of the club. And I think that was a massive problem with Kylian Mbappe at PSG, and I'm not sure how it's going to go, because look, there's been loads of superstars who went to Real Madrid. Look at Eden Hazard, recent enough, and just didn't work out because of the pressures. But I don't know. I really think it's a strange just transfer, really, because I think
Final thoughts on this, Keelan. If Mbappe does go to Madrid, do you think that wipes out his chances of ever playing in England? Maybe in years to come, but at his peak, probably.
Yeah. Look, Florentino Perez is a very, very strict man in himself. If you snub Real Madrid, that's it. They'll never come back. But I think Mbappe's kind of different because he's more generational than any other player that we've seen. But I think the only other option really that Mbappe has to look at is Haaland versus Mbappe. The new Messi versus Neymar. But how are you going to do that competing in a different league? So what options realistically does he have? Man City can't go out and get him on 115 charges against them. Real Madrid or Liverpool will never ever accept an ego as big as Mbappe's. As much as a player with any team in the world would love to have him, the finances just wouldn't be there, and there's no other team in England that would really be able to do that. And Chelsea aren't going to sign him on a 300-year contract realistically, So I'm not sure. I think it's nailed down. He's going to Real Madrid, but it's going to be interesting to see the numbers.
It's when and not if. Callum saying he's 25 and on the show for it significantly at club level. He has to win Champions Leagues and a Ballon d'Or. He's perfect for United. They're shocking ATM, terrible attitudes and big massive wages. You never know in football, I suppose. Let's move on to a slightly more sad topic today. And do you know what? I've been having a laugh sort of recently about this because, Hodgson has been struggling in terms of Crystal Palace. There's been a lot of pressure on him. But I suppose when something like this happens today, it makes you think that maybe this, it's not much of a laughing matter because it's someone's life we're dealing with. But I have found some of the press conferences strange and some of the stuff he's been saying in the media after games. But I think that could be related to his health, because today we heard that Hodgson collapsed in a training session, and he was rushed to hospital. First dealt with the medic staff, but then under the emergency services. The good news is he's had tests and he's speaking to people and feeling much better. But I mean, how concerning is it that this has been allowed to happen? Do you think this could be brought on by the pressure on by the fans, by the media? Hearing today that he could be losing his job, and he was scheduled to take a press conference at 1:30. Then that didn't happen because he was ill. If he was taking the press conference, I'm not sure why he was, if he was going to be replaced a few hours later. We're hearing that this new manager is in place, but it hasn't been announced just because of the health incident. We're all really not sure. I suppose Palace fans are probably scratching their heads the most. But I mean, what do you think about this all? I mean, it's not a good situation at all, is it?
I really don't think that they should have brought him back, to be fair. I think they brought him back one too many times. Crystal Palace are a team that really should have been looking at, around the time that they still had Zaha. They've Eze coming in now as well. They've got Elise. That's a team there that there's two great players you can build around. And I think they should have been looking to stick with Patrick Vieira at the time and let him work and build. I think there's too much expectation and panic around Crystal Palace to get somewhere without actually building the foundations of it. Now, if you look at the likes of what Wolves done for a good number of years, look at Aston Villa as well.
Their biggest frustration at the minute, Palace fans, is Brighton, that they're seen as their main rivals, and Brighton have come up through the Championship and they've progressed a lot further on than they have in the time they've been here. I think and they got smashed 4-1 by Palace by Brighton a few weeks ago, and that's really soured it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can understand the frustration from the fans because you're not showing a level of progression every year. You're just sitting static year in, year out, chop change, just to get to the same position. I think Palace fans, I think that they might have jumped the gun a bit too early on Vieira, and if when a new manager come in, whoever it's going to be, they really need to start building the foundation and the fundamentals of what Crystal Palace is, what identities they want in their team, and to really sort it out, because it's just going to be the same cycle over and over again. And you can't expect a man of Roy Hodgson's age to come in and do wonders like every single season that they need pulled out of the bin. It's not good.
76 going on 77. It's a brave age to be involved in top level football. I mean, do you think this was an oversight by everyone involved? First from Palace, they should have been looking beyond. Fair enough, they sacked Vieira last year. I didn't quite agree with it, but bring Roy in, they save you. Fair enough. If you come in at March, they may. It's only a 3-month stunt. Then there was talk they were looking for a manager. For whatever reason, that didn't work out, and then they come back to Roy and give him another year. Do you think that was a bad decision by all involved? Roy himself thinking he was capable of it, because 9 months is very different to 3 months. And really, when he just come on there, they didn't really see as him being a figurehead for the future. So I'm sure he was just dealing with the players. All of a sudden, when you become the manager in the summer, you're involved in other stuff, transfer business, etc., setting up anything like pre-season tours. There's so much they organise. And then also by Palace, that they were so short-sighted that they just thought, you know what, the manager we're looking for, maybe we can't get him. We're just going to stick with Roy in our year, just stay up, forget about progression, just maintain our position, like you said, stay static. It's just not a good look, and I think that's what the fans have been so furious with. And unfortunately, Roy's been put in the position of taking a lot of the flack because he's the figurehead. He's in front of the media every week. But I think their main frustration has been aimed at the board and the directors. But obviously, they're not happy with Roy's style of play. But I mean, that is what you're going to get with Roy. We know what he's like. He's not going to be playing sexy, expansive football. He's had a few injuries, like you said, Eze and Elise. That's not helped him. So I mean, I just think by everyone involved, this is a really, really bad decision. And now it's not just the consequences that Palace could get relegated, but the more bigger consequence that Roy's health has significantly deteriorated. I mean, I was over in London in September, and I think Wolves were playing Liverpool at 12:30, and just flashed up on my phone because I was going to the 3 o'clock Spurs Sheffield United game. Whoever Crystal Palace were playing Roy took all that day as well and didn't make the game. So this is the second time this season this has happened.
You know, look, Roy Hodgson, for a number of years for Palace has been a quick fix. You know, if you don't have an overall plan in place, there's not going to be players who are going to want to sign for Crystal Palace. You know, if he takes on well, you know, 9 times out of 10, you know, what realistically is your plan? Where are you showing to be going? What is the fans being shown? You know, they want gold, but yet they keep going back to copper. You know, like it's like it just doesn't make sense. It's has to be the most strange, just the decisions of.
Well, today really summed up the fact that we're hearing that Roy is on his way out from yesterday. There's a new manager coming on, Glasner, who managed Frankfurt, won the Europa League with Frankfurt against Rangers, of course, in the final. It ended at Frankfurt in bad terms, but has been out of work since, and it looks nailed on that he's going to be the new manager. But we're hearing Roy was still going to take a press conference today. He took training today, but obviously in between training and the press conference, he's had this incident, and he's been wheeled away. And then we're hearing about an hour later that Glasner signed his contract and ready to come on. So I don't really can't really understand why Roy would be taking a press conference if he's going to be fired later on that day, and why Glasner didn't take today's session. Like, they don't have a game day Monday. I can understand maybe if it was Saturday and Glasner says, you know what, I'll start fresh on Monday. I'll go to the game and sit in the stands, watch it. Let Roy have his sort of last day in the job. There's plenty of time between now and Monday. And the other thing is, if Roy does take the game on Monday and wins, puts him in a difficult position to get rid of him because he just had a good result. So very strange, and I don't think it's helped Roy because obviously he's not been in the best place health-wise. I think the stress, the pressure, the media, all this talk, probably fearing about losing his job, is probably just, you know, because he's recovered and he's sat up. So I can only envisage it was brought on by stress. So it's been really badly handled by Crystal Palace.
Yeah, from the board, it's the biggest shambles ever. It's like, you know, the disrespect for Roy himself for the amount of times he's pulled him out of ruts, you know, coming back from knowing he was in bad health to try and help him for those 3 months. You know, maybe feeling confident himself that he could get it going for another while yet. But, you know, realistically, that shouldn't have been an option if the board was running the club well and there's a plan in place. You know, it's like now it's like your woman's coming in the front door and you're sneaking your side ball out the back door. Like, you know, that's kind of what it kind of looks like.
Have you much experience in that, have you?
No, definitely not. But it just feels like a real kick in the teeth for Roy, because, you know, this should have happened a long time ago, and there should have been a plan in place for those 3 months. You know,
he's a proud man, Roy. His career. He's a proud man. Do you think this will be hurting his pride now? Because, you know, I'm sure he's desperate to stay on the end of the season. I'm sure he's begging. You know, he wants to finish on a high, keep Palace up again. I don't think he wants to be removed now. You know, at this stage of the season, because people feel he's not fit for it. Obviously, his health's deteriorating. And he said this week that this has been the most difficult time of his career. And you think about it, he's been in some difficult moments. You think with Liverpool, he was hounded out by the fans. England, he had that Iceland result, and, you know, he had nowhere to go after that. So do you think that at Crystal Palace, this has been his most difficult when he's had more stellar jobs in the future? I really think this is attacking his pride.
I just think it's very disrespectful. I think he'll feel very hurt. You know, he's lucky. There's no shortage of experience in the game and of being sacked before. But, you know, for the way this has kind of come to a head, it's really unprofessional from, you know, a very, very good Premier League team. You know, they have a good fan base, but I just, you know, the progression of the club itself, it stems from the board and what they're showing, the managers that's come in, the players that's come in, who they're trying to approach. You know, that comes from the top, you know, and you have to start from the bottom, and it just feels like it's like a jigsaw that's been thrown together. many
And the
times.
problem as well is Roy, as a Crystal Palace fan as well, we believe. So if he feels that it's his duty to try, and so I think that's another thing that's pushing him on. That's why he keeps coming back. But it's like anything, if somebody tells you, Roy, maybe you're not fit to do it, you want to go and prove them that you can do it. So I think it's a very difficult situation. Darren's saying it's a very strange scenario, but he thinks Roy's race is run, and it's probs time to go, and the illness is just cement the board's decision. I mean, what do you think should happen now? I mean, it's been badly handled. I'm pretty sure they've held off on the announcement because Fabrizio Romano says it's signed and sealed. So if he's saying it, it's done. It's just not been announced yet. What do you think should happen? I mean, do you think this health scare, not an excuse, but it should be Roy's way of going, you know what, as much as I'd like to stay on, it's probably time to step back for my own health. Because you just don't know where this could go. If they're on a relegation battle and it's, the pressures of the job, it could really, he could lose his life, or he could lose years of his life in later time after football.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, the board could very easily now turn around and say, oh, well, we stuck by Roy the whole time and we never planned to sack him until this came about. It's a very easy cover story for them. It'll feel very disrespectful to Roy, in terms of how many times he's come back and he's given so much to the club, and it's late 70s, years of age. I mean, it's crazy, the pressure of the Premier League as we know it, but to be constantly fighting to stay up all the time, with fans hounding that they want more and more and more, yet you're probably being told one thing from the board and the fans want another. But I just think that now it's time from, Darren's right there. I think, his time's run. He needs to go home and just let football go now. Just look back at his career, be proud, and Crystal Palace need to just sort something out, because there'll become a time where they can't go to a reliable source to keep him up, and it could be like a Sunderland kind of job.
Yeah, once you go down, there's no guaranteed route you're coming back. I want to tie this on the Klopp's decision to step down, because we've heard from Klopp similar kind of stuff what we're speaking about, the pressures of the job. Now, Liverpool and Palace, completely different ends of the Premier League, but the pressure is quite similar in terms of one team's trying to win a league and win trophies. The other team's just trying to stay in the league, which is just as hard if you're a team that's always struggling. And I mean, he said, not that his health's bad now, but he's thinking about the future. And you have to remember, Klopp is 21 years younger than Roy. So quite a difference in age. And he believes he needs to step back from football, needs to refresh, needs to enjoy life, and then maybe come back. We're hearing possibly international management, which is a massive step back from club management. I mean, do you think Roy, seeing Roy how he is now, it probably makes sense that Klopp's stepping back, because he's been on a Liverpool job and it's €100 million in terms of how they play, the training involved, the pressure managing Liverpool. And let's be honest, the amount of games they've played under Klopp, they've been in European finals, even if it's not even in his first season, they're in a Europa League final. So they tend to have long seasons. It's 55, 60, 65 game seasons. Do you think this is a point now that's going to be sort of stamped on, that managers might look around some of the older ones and say, do you know what? I don't want to end up like Roy, having to be in a hospital when I'm supposed to be managing a club. I want to be by my family, enjoying maybe retirement and looking back on my great memories.
I think it could be a knock-on effect. I mean, there's more games being played too for the players, more games for managers, and if managers are doing what they're doing, but yet players are playing so many games, you could watch just the age difference of players starting to drop. They'll not want to play anymore. Gareth Bale spoke about it before and says that we're robots. I think, Klopp went from Mainz, taking them from promotion, which was success straight away, relentless, to Dortmund, to winning the Bundesliga, to Champions League final, was competing straight to Liverpool, and then built and competed. And I think if you were competing against Pep Guardiola's team for 8 years, you'd be pretty scunnered too. Like, But I think, there's a lot of. I think the best thing for Liverpool now would be XABI Alonso, because of how young he is, um, and he'd have time then to build what he could do. But I think for older managers and stuff as well, it'd definitely be a wake up call for sure.
We're going to speak about XABI very shortly. Just want to finish off on this. I mean, do you think there's enough support out there at the moment for players and managers? We hear a lot of players when they come out of the game don't really see a pathway, or that's why we see a lot of players going into coaching, but they feel that they don't really have much other option. They're sort of addicted to the game in a way. You've seen Roy. I think as much as Roy wants to stay on and manage, he probably feels that he doesn't want to be sitting at home.
That's all he knows.
I think as Klopp's is physically it's difficult, but mentally it's quite challenging. And like you're a player. You play when you were younger. You were playing all the time, flying to different countries to play. So it doesn't just start in your 20s. It starts from a young age. You're having to play and play and play.
I mean, you can look at it as a job when you get older, but if it's something that you've done your whole life, it's a way of life. You can't just remove that. It is an addiction, really. Like it's a lifestyle. It's exactly what it is, and to be asked to step away from it, or to think it's easy to step away from it, definitely not. But I think for such a massive organization, there should be a lot more done in terms of retired players, retired coaches, and kind of support around that. I know they have charity matches and stuff, and they meet up and different things as well.
One of the things that Howard Webb's trying to bring them now is getting more ex-players as referees. But the problem is, it's very if you play to your 37, 38, it's very difficult to start refereeing then. It's very if you've no experience in it. I think that's something they're trying to look now with young players, especially young players that maybe don't make it. Can they get them on their referees program? Do you think that's a good way to possibly keep people involved in the game?
In my personal opinion, I don't think so, because if the referees who've had so much experience up to now can't deal with the pressures of it, and the decisions and the level and consistency is as bad as it is now, if you put ex players into that, and say if you had a James Milner who's played with multiple different clubs, you couldn't just turn around and say to him, no, you can't referee against all the clubs you've played against or played for.
You won't get many games away.
Like it would be a whole mess. I don't think that's something that would
there's too much. I know what you mean. There's too much bias in the game. I heard it was funny. I remember them talking about in Talk Sport there, and Martin Keane, if you're refereeing Spurs against Liverpool, would you be fair? And he says it would be very difficult because he's an Arsenal fan. It would be very difficult to, if Spurs had a Stonewall penalty, he would find it difficult to give the penalty. I think that's just him being honest. I don't think that's questioning his integrity. I just think that's, same. If I was refereeing an Arsenal game, I would struggle to give him a decision in a game, if I thought I could get away with it. But I think that's a topic for another day. We're hearing that Glasner is going to be, Oliver Glasner is going to be replacing Hodgson. Now, not expecting a lot about him. You probably remember him from they beat Rangers in the final. So suppose if Palace fans are looking at that, a manager coming in that's won a European trophy, it's the Europa League, so it's not easy to win. I suppose that might give him a bit of encouragement that this man might have a plan in place. But the only worry is he's no Premier League experience in Palace at the moment in a dogfight.
I wouldn't be worried too much about the Premier League experience and what his plan is. I think the most important thing probably stems from the head of the club. What's Palace's plan, and what can he bring? Because it needs to work both ways, because this could just be another manager that comes into an absolute.
Well, it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. We're hearing it's only going to be a 2-year contract, so that doesn't sound like it's a long-term project if it's only initially a 2-year deal.
I think that's a big problem straight away. Again, they're going for quick fixes all the time, and you can't do that as a Premier League club that wants to progress. The fans want to progress. The fans will get there's always a cut-off point with the fans, and if you lose the fans, you're going down a very bad route that's near impossible to fix. For a club like Crystal Palace, slow and steady wins the race, but they've just been slow and stopped and quick fixing all the time.
It's more
It's not.
likely when you stop, you'll go backwards before you start going forwards again.
That's it. Like, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs, especially with Glasner, not having Premier League experience, but the plans need to the plans need to match, and if they don't match, then the likes of their superstars, Olise, Eze, these kind of players will not want to stay at a club that has no direction or motivation.
I think it's worrying that a manager like Steve Cooper's turned it down because he very much is a project manager and he says no thanks. But maybe that is down to maybe a manager. The first thing he would ask for is probably what's happening with Eze and Elise in the summer, and they must want to go or they're planning for their exit. So I suppose it could be difficult for Palace. Let's talk about your club, Keelan, because I mean it's a story that just keeps coming back and back and back, and I think it's been highlighted at the weekend after Bayer Leverkusen's impressive victory over Bayern Munich that the Liverpool fans are being very excited. I think they were excited initially after they got over the news about Klopp stepping back. Obviously, they're still more than that, but the fact that Alonso's a Liverpool player, it's great success. Liverpool very sulky, a fan's favourite. Madrid, Bayern Munich, very successful player. Goes on to Bayer Leverkusen last season, does a decent job, and then this season it just ticks off, and they're still unbeaten. They could be a potential rival to Liverpool in the Europa League. So it'll be interesting to see where the loyalties lie come May if they were to meet in the final. But for now, this is the man that Liverpool, it just will not go away. It seems nailed on that Alonso is the top target, and very much he's saying he's happy where he is, but I think we all know he would love the job. So, I mean, you mentioned them earlier. Is this the right man you feel they take over after Klopp?
I think if you look at his age, what he's done in such a short space of time for a relatively big club and not having serious money. He's turned a left back who came on a free transfer into 10 goals and 13 assists this season, and you have Frimpong as well on the right side. A style of play moves from a 5 at the back to a 4 at the back very quickly, with and without the ball, and it's interesting to watch because you can see the mix of the managers he's played under and the influence that they've had in his coaching.
They are super well coached. Every player knows his position inside out. When they have the ball, what formation, when they're out of the ball and transition, his improvement to players like you say, Grimaldo, Florian Wirtz is having an unbelievable season. And if you look at the rest of it, they're not superstar players. You think about Nathan Tella, he was at Southampton, didn't really set the world on fire. He's having a great season. So I think that's the number one thing you look at. Obviously how well coached they are, but the improvement of players.
Absolutely, I think you need to have the players buy into your project, and obviously after one season with them, they have and they've full belief in what they're doing game after game, and to be unbeaten at this stage of the season is nothing short of unbelievable. I think for Liverpool, what matches so well is he knows the club so well, as what was said there, and also the fact that he is showing a progressive style of play that is also similar to how Liverpool play. So there won't be a major change in personnel, I wouldn't feel, because of the players that we have. I think maybe a number 6 still is needed for Liverpool, which could possibly happen with XABI Alonso. But it just, we were talking earlier about the stress of older managers. He's a young manager. He's fresh into it. He's ready to go. You know,
He
if
seems
Liverpool
very
have,
cool, calm, and collected. Very much like how he played as well.
yeah, I mean, like if you have a manager like that ready to go, is 100% sure in his style of play, his football, his ability, and you have a young Liverpool team that is, you know, sitting top of the Premier League at the minute in their first transitional season. You know, it Liverpool aren't Liverpool are never going to go and buy big players. Liverpool are never going to go and you know, poach managers at other clubs. That's not going to happen unless they know the ins and outs of, say, look, he has 6 months left in his contract or whatever. But you know, the most realistic option at the minute has to be Xabi Alonso, and I don't think.
Does Alonso excite you as a Liverpool fan? Does he get you off your seat? You know, you think about, like, obviously when Klopp came in, Liverpool fans were, you know, were going crazy about Klopp. Does this fill you with the same excitement, or do you think, and if it does, do you think is that blinded by how good he was as a player? Because it's very different being a top player to being a top manager. Although at the minute he's showing all the signs that he could be one, but still very inexperienced. And you know, if the likes of Gerrard at Rangers was, Liverpool fans were thinking, oh, this could be the next boy after Klopp. That hasn't worked out. Lampard went on to Chelsea, and people said to me, it could be key that Alonso will have the fans on side because of his, you know, his connection to Liverpool. But Lampard's one of Chelsea's most decorative players, and he was hounded out at the end. Eventually, if results turn, the fans start they lose that connection. Now Lampard is still very well thought of by the fans, but at that particular time, they wanted a change. And we've also seen with Rooney being fast tracked, that hasn't really worked out. So is that the danger that all these managers shown early promise at one job, but then when they went on to the next job, and evidently they were all quite significant steps ups. The only thing I would say, maybe Leverkusen to Liverpool, although it is a big step up, Leverkusen Bundesliga, big enough club compared to Derby to Chelsea, or I think Rooney went from DC United to Birmingham, for example. So Gerrard, Rangers, Villa was quite a big step up in terms of the leagues as well being involved. But it still does point the managers have struggled taking that step maybe too quickly.
I'm not sure if it's, you know, if you look at it like that, then it's very easy to point to that. But I don't think that it's so much a case of too early, too soon for them. I think Steven Gerrard never had a plan or a way of playing that we all knew and recognised. Neither did Frank Lampard. You know, the only thing that you can really remember about Frank Lampard was he kind of played Mount from a left wing, kind of floating number 10. That's the only thing I remember about.
Style of play, I get that, yeah.
You know, Rooney is completely irrelevant. He's just pure and utter dung. I mean, Steven Gerrard, very much the same. I don't rate him, don't want him.
Apparently, Liam Senior was doing most of the work at Derby, and Rooney got all the credit. And look at Senior now at Hull; he's flying, has Hull playing great football. So maybe Rooney was hiding behind him, and then he got the DC United job. That was a disaster. Birmingham was an absolute disaster. Lampard hasn't worked out since leaving Derby. Done well at Derby, and as you say, after Gerrard left Rangers in a two-horse league where Celtic were possibly struggling at the time. I mean, it shows at Villa. I mean, he had them in a relegation fight, and look at the players they have.
Exactly. Look at Aston Villa now. I think it's just the biggest thing that I would say the difference between all of those and Xabi Alonso is Xabi Alonso has very, very quickly set down how he plays and has his team playing with 100% conviction. If you put him into a Liverpool team that is already top of the league in a transitional team or transitional year, I would love to see the damage that Liverpool will cause next year if Alonso steps in as manager.
So you're very confident then?
Absolutely. I don't think there's any reason why I shouldn't. I think maybe the only thing you can point to is lack of experience. You know,
I want to balance it out. I want to balance it out, Keelan, because for as much as me saying about that, you also have this story of Arteta, who had no real experience in management, worked under Pep. We've seen Maresca at Leicester this season as well, worked under Pep, doing really well, dominant in the Championship. Arteta's come on the Arsenal, very, very big job. Ireland United or Liverpool, you'd probably rank them as the third biggest. Now it's been a lengthy process. It's took time, but I mean, do you think it'll take as much time at Liverpool? They are in much better shape than Arsenal were in when Arteta come on. But I did know what you saying about there is similars in Klopp and Alonso's style of play, but it is more. I think Carragher summed it up. It's kind of in the middle between Klopp and Pep. It's more possession based as well, not that rock and roll style of football that Klopp likes to play. So there will be a bit of adjustment time. But would you expect Alonso to be getting this going? You know, maybe if he has one transitional year, by the second year it's kicking on. You know, Arteta's had 4 or 5 years before Arsenal really kicked on.
I don't think Liverpool will put a time frame on it. If they go for Alonso, it's a long term project. I think the only reason why there would be pressure on it would be because of how Liverpool played this year. You know, with the players that we brought in, everyone has been surprised on how well Liverpool have got things going straight away again. You know, one transfer window's going great, but that's not necessarily the case out of all the transfer windows that he's going to have. You know, he needs to find his own. He needs to find his own players and find a balance between what's there already and, you know, play to the players, and also players have to play to his style of play. I mean, it's a mix
Do you
between.
think that makes it more difficult for him, Keelan? If Liverpool won the league this year, for example, or come second to Man City by a couple of points, and they won the Europa League, I expect them to win the League Cup in a couple of weeks' time. If they come in with that sort of massive season, if Liverpool were to drop the say fifth next year in his first season or sixth and don't qualify for the Champions League, for example, but the signs are that it's good, will the fans stick by him? Do you think, you know, and say, well, do you know what? There was always maybe going to be a slight drop off from Klopp in his first season. He will have to maybe bring on 2 or 3 players and 2 or 3 players move on. It would be wrong to expect them to come on and just take over and everything, you know, Liverpool just keep dominant again.
You know, this isn't going to be a Bill Shankly to Bob Paisley kind of job here. Like, you know, the Liverpool fans are very patient. You know,
Yeah.
We talked about Roy Hodgson earlier. We sat through that. So I think if we have Alonso sitting in the dugout after having Jurgen Klopp for 10 years, then, you know, I think we'll be all right. You know, I don't think there'll be too much expectation other than getting top 4, because at the end of the day, we still do have the players. You know, you have to maintain top 4. Liverpool, you have to. Champions League football
like it could even be top 5. So I mean, you may be having the insurance of a 5th spot getting you in it. So would that be a worry if he didn't finish in the say top 5 and he missed out? Would it be under serious pressure then? You think a second season, or how do you think the fans would feel?
I think if he failed in the second season at getting top 4 after signs of promise for a year and a half, then I think that'll be you'd be considering then. But I think as long as the signs are good, you know, Klopp in his first year, it was last day we got top 4. You know, I think people need to keep that in mind as well. It's not, you know, you look at the difference of Klopp and Alonso. There's nothing really to base it off, but you know, the amount of what Klopp has done at Liverpool is, you know, he's easily top 3 greatest.
The foundations are in place. I mean, if you are Alonso you're walking into a stable club. You've got a really talented group. There's a couple of issues with the likes of Salah and Van Dijk getting on a wee bit in age and contract situations. I know Trent's contract situation's up for a bit, but I'm sure he'll be their main priority with his age and being the face of Liverpool. But I suppose, how do you see it with them two? Salah, you know, if Trent signed up to a big contract, which he deserves, Van Dijk and Salah, do you see them being signed up to massive contracts? Because we know Salah's contract pretty extensive at the moment. Do you see all 3 of them being there next year, or do you feel that maybe one of them could be moved on? And I would imagine it would be either Trent or Salah or Van Dijk.
I think Salah and Van Dijk are gone in the summer.
You do?
Truth be told, I do. You know, there was worries with what Van Dijk said. That's kind of a wee hint about it, and he's still, without doubt, he's the best. Well, he's the second best centre back in the world behind Van de Ven at the minute.
You think Van de Ven?
I think Van de Ven's the best centre back in the world. I don't care.
Strange only because apparently Liverpool had him before Spurs and didn't go through with it. So, I mean, he would have been the perfect replacement.
Can you imagine that, man? Jeez. But look, I think Alonso will have in place a few players that he'll want to bring either with him, or he'll have looked at players if he steps in the door. But um, I think Salah and Van Dijk move on. Trent will always be there, but then it'll be a case of, well, am I putting Trent in midfield, and am I buying a right back, or am I buying a number six?
I think with the way he plays, I think it's going to need a more mobile, sort of explosive right back that's going to go up and down. Like you see me in the left side, I could see Grimaldo being targeted for the left because Robertson's getting older. I think Trent and his system could be more suited to midfield.
I would take out of how Alonso plays. I would take both of them fullbacks, and I would take one of the centre backs as well, Hiankopy, or whatever his name is.
He's been linked with Spurs a few times before. We didn't get him, but Liverpool seem to be the front runners now for him. But I think as well, though, it would be wrong for Alonso to come in and just have the same team and go again. I just think that would be destined for failure. If you've got everyone that the ex-manager had and they've all them loyalties, I think inevitably there'll be a consensus among the likes of Van Dijk and Salah, especially if they won the league this year, of what more they can actually achieve at Liverpool. They may feel it they're in the twilight of their career and they might have 3 or 4 years left, moving country, moving to our league and experiencing that. And I don't think that will be a bad, although it will be a blow for Liverpool now. You seen it with Harry Kane. There is light after top players. The club will always be there and they'll always recover. So, I didn't sit here this year expecting Spurs to be, not really missing Kane. But I expected within 2 or 3 years that Kane would be remembered for being a great player, but the club would go on. It's been very refreshing that it's been happening so soon. But I can see a similar situation. If Salah goes, you can be sure there'll be another top player coming in. You look at someone like, I'm hearing that Neto's up for sale this summer. Like, he looks fantastic. He would be an ideal replacement.
I think there's a few names in the Premier League. I mean, Olise as well. If you could go and poach Kudos at West Ham, who's looked very lively. Diaby, Aston Villa.
Yeah.
There's loads of players there that have lots of potential. It's just nurturing that potential, and whether they have the belief that this is what Alonso is going to do. He's going to help us get there. I mean, in terms of a name, he's going to have a bite. He's going to have a pull because of how classy he was as a player. I would love this year to see if Liverpool, say Salah and Van Dijk left. I would love to see that Hiankopy brought in. I would love to see one of the players there that I mentioned out in the right. And I would love.
He's a Liverpool fan. The comments a lot. He's a big fan of the Wirtz fella, the Florian Wirtz. He thinks he would be a really top player. I mean, you look at that leverage. You could take 3 or 4 of them. You think about the centre back. You mentioned him, Hinpape, or I can't remember pronounce his name. Colombian centre back. You look at the 2 wide players, Frimpong and Grimaldo, and then you look at Wirtz. I mean, there's 4, but I don't see him going down that route of getting all these players and bringing them on here. I don't think that's. You might get one, but I'm not sure he'll go down that route.
I don't think that'll happen, but I think he does need to assert his own players and his own identity. As you said, you can't just expect to step in and then just go, all right, I'm taking over from Klopp here now. I'm just going to do this now and we'll go again for the league. It's not going to happen. I do think Liverpool need a lot of strengthening. I think we got a lot of luck this year. In terms of how it's went with our signings from the summer, but there's a lot of work to be done. Background staff have to come in, and also a new sporting director, I think it is.
Yeah, it's going to be very much a rebuild, not just under the manager and the team, but the club as well. It's going down a different path. Klopp had a lot of power as well. I'm sure Alonso, when he comes in, there'll be a sporting director in place. They help him identify players. I mean, let's just say we're miles off it, and it isn't Alonso. We're hearing that our names being linked are Roberto De Zerbi and Ruben Amorim from Sporting. A couple of our names, but these 2 seem to be if Alonso and him went wrong, it would be one of these 2. What's your thoughts on these 2? And is there anyone else out there you think should be considered for the job?
I think you have to put Ange Postecoglou in there.
I knew you were going to say it.
Being a Liverpool fan, nah, my number one after Alonso would have been Ange if possible, but can't see that happening. De Zerbi could be a potential. My only concern with De Zerbi is he's very, very hot-headed,
Mm.
and if anything goes down with Liverpool fans, they could lose him very quick, and that's not a route for a long-term project that you really want to go down. So
I
I
just don't
mean,
see De Zerbi as a Liverpool coach. I don't think he's got the temperament. I just don't see it.
no, I don't think so either. I really don't know. There's not a
Mm.
great selection out there, to be fair. When
Uh,
Liverpool aren't the club to go and poach other teams' managers,
the problem as
although I
well
would
is the
love
stellar.
Ange.
That's that the stellar names as well. The likes of your Mourinho's, your Contes, your Simeone's, Ancelotti's. Bar Ancelotti, and he's tied up in Madrid, but he's moving towards the end of his career. Conte and Mourinho, Simeone, that style of play is not what Liverpool want, and you could argue, particularly the first team, Mourinho and Conte, their days at the top level are gone. They've been found out. Football's changed. So I do think they are a bit stuck in a way in terms of they really have to go down the route of a manager with maybe not that much experience or maybe not got the CV of a Liverpool manager. But it's going to be interesting. But for me, I think it's going to be Alonso.
Yeah, me too. I think so. I think it's better if it is Alonso and it's a young coach because you have longevity out of that too. You're not worried about it and how quickly football's transitioning and changing in terms of tactics and how the fullbacks have now moved in the midfield. The false nine that was played. There's so many different aspects that you know you have a young mind who was such an unreal player who's worked under the best there's ever been. You know, is now showing that he has all this together and is now implementing that into the Bayern Leverkusen team. So, if he brought that to Liverpool, and there's no reason why it shouldn't work out.
Do you think, as it written before we go on to the Premier League preview for the weekend, do you think is it written for Klopp and Alonso to meet in that final in Dublin?
I would love to see it. And something, if Liverpool lost, I wouldn't be too angry if I knew he was coming in. If I knew he was coming in, because for the season that they've had, to be fair to them, they deserve everything. The players have given 100% to him, and he's given 100% to the players. So it's well
That now
deserved.
looks a lot more difficult. They won. All of a sudden, Liverpool were strong favourites. Now, I still think they are. But, I mean, if you meet that team in the final and if they've won the German League and they're still unbeaten, all of a sudden that becomes... It's like a mini Champions League final way between two teams who have been unbelievable this season, meeting in the second-rate competition. But I think it will be just as good as whoever meets in the final this year of the Champions League.
It'd be a great watch, anyways, that's for sure, because two very, very, very good teams, great style of plays, great players, and two very well respected managers. So, I'm
Will
looking forward
will
to
you
it, and
be there?
hopefully,
Will you be in Dublin to watch Liverpool if they're in the final?
if I'm lucky enough to get off one of the shows, I'll be there 100%.
Let's move on to the Premier League preview for the weekend because some massive games. The title race is hotting up. It looks very much like a three-horse race, and the three teams at the minute aren't giving an inch. I mean, kicking off the weekend, maybe this is a good thing, playing first, Keelan. I don't know how you feel about it. Liverpool had a free week this week, no midweek game, so suppose you'd rather play first and get the points on the board. Is that how you see it, away to Brentford on Saturday?
On this particular occasion, I think so. You know, we've had so many half-12 kickoffs that have gone against us, and I think this one now actually works in our favour because it puts the pressure on the other two teams to make sure that they get the points. You'd rather be leading than chasing, to be fair. We've chased and chased and chased for so many years, but I think now not that the pressure's less, but I think it's a lot easier to go on the half-12 kickoff, win your game, and then sit back and relax for the weekend, prepare for the next one.
Well, that's
And
it.
look,
If you won this game, you're top until you play again. So
it's a Chelsea Man City as well. I mean, big game.
You
But
never know, as I'm saying. Oh, sorry, I got that wrong actually, because Man City play Tuesday night, don't they? And then Liverpool play Wednesday. So, but they could be top again if they won on Wednesday. But by the end of next weekend, Man City, if they really won their games, will be back top. I mean, do you think it'll worry Liverpool in a way? Do you think psychologically it's important being top, or Man City do have that game in hand, so it's always been there. But would you very much like to be in front because you know what it's like chasing Man City? Even if it only has 1 point, it's still chasing them because we know their level at this time of the year.
You're always going to want to be ahead of Man City, because if Man City start to pull away 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4, that's them gone. There is no team in the world when Man City are steamrolling that's going to stop them, and especially if they start going into easier games, they don't have, after Chelsea, I don't think, too hard of games coming up.
Brentford at home, Bournemouth away, and there's one more, Man United at home before they play Liverpool away.
All handy games for them. They'll pick
You're
up.
not expecting any favours off United now, going to Man City?
United, I really don't know. I just don't think Man United are good enough to compete on any level with them, no matter how good United play the week beforehand or the weeks leading up.
I mean, if United give up the chances they give Villa to Man City, they've no chance.
I mean, probably, to me, Foden's kicking into gear, Haaland's back scoring, De Bruyne's back. Looks like he never left.
Crazy, isn't it, the level that man's playing at after being away?
Doku's back. I mean, there's no way I can see McTominay and Johnny Evans sorting out Haaland and De Bruyne. It's just not within touching distance.
I suppose the most important thing for Liverpool is take care of business, and that starts on Saturday with Brentford. I mean, what do you expect off Brentford? I mean, they are quite physical. Tony's been scoring goals since he's back, but the only thing about Brentford that's been really different, and obviously their form's not been as good, but the most biggest difference we've seen them in this year, in the last 2 years they've been in the league, is they're letting a lot of goals.
I'm not confident in Liverpool, though. I don't think Liverpool's going to win this game.
You're not? No, you don't fancy it?
My reason is because watching Liverpool the last few weeks, the sloppiness from the start of the match, the misplaced passes against Arsenal, how hard we made the game against Burnley, wasn't
it? Away from home as well, it seems to be a slow starting game. They tend to go 1-0 behind at times.
We don't do well at Brentford. We have a poor record away to Brentford, I think. And Ivan Toney, unless he's going to do us favours, being a Liverpool fan, start scoring in his own net, it's going to be a tough game. I mean, Trent's out injured. Salah's just back, so it'll be interesting to see if he starts. Szoboszlai's out. You're easing Andy Robertson back in still. Just the midfield the last 3 weeks has looked very, very, very poor, and the creativity is completely lost for most parts of the game. And I think Brentford will.
No easier, never.
But no, I think with the players and the style of play Thomas Frank has them playing, they're going to be very, 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 very hard to beat.
So how do you see it going then? What's your score prediction for this game?
I'm going 2-1 Brentford.
2-1 Brentford. You think it'll beat as well? Jeez, there's an unconfident. I haven't met too many unconfident Liverpool fans this season ahead of a game. I do think it'll be difficult, but I actually think Liverpool will find a way to win. They've done that quite a lot this year, so I'm going to go for the same scoreline, but reversed. I'm going to go 2-1 to Liverpool, but I do expect it to be quite tough. Darren saying 2-0 Liverpool. He's confident. Burnley and Arsenal 3 o'clock. There's actually quite big games at 3 o'clock this weekend. A lot of the big teams in action on Saturday, right through from 12:30 to 5:30. Burnley started quite well at Anfield last week and weren't clinical, but the old frailties come back. They concede far too many goals. I mean, Arsenal seem to be hitting form at the right time now. 4 wins in a row, looking to make it 5, and I think this is a nice fixture for them.
Burnley played. Very hard to know, because if they play the way they did at the start of the game in Anfield, then they will be very hard to beat, especially at home, if the fans get behind them. And Arsenal will do an Arsenal, really. You can go 1 week and win 6-0, but Arsenal have shown they can go and get beat 2-0 the next week, so it'll be interesting to see. I think this will be a statement for Arsenal if they win, and they win comfortably. Burnley, there's not really too much to lose. They just don't really go anywhere, Burnley. They're like,
the only thing they tend to do is pick the ball out of the back on it.
Yeah, that's it. But I don't know. I think Arsenal will win, but I don't think it'll be as comfortably as people think.
Score prediction?
I go 2-1 Arsenal.
2-1. I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal. Fulham, Aston Villa is the next game we're looking at. Villa have had a brick wall, really struggling at the moment. A few injuries as well. Fulham got a great one last week out. Villa's away form this season hasn't been great. So this is a tricky game for them, going to Fulham. As Liverpool, I mean, you think about Liverpool, not great run. Even the 2 games against Fulham in the Cup was quite difficult. Won the first game 2-1 at home and drew the second game 1-1, and they were quite fortunate not to be going to extra time because Fulham had chances. And Fulham at home are always a difficult opposition. So this is potentially a tricky game for Villa.
2 great teams playing very, very well, both of them. I think Fulham have kind of let the gas off the pedal a little bit, but also so too Aston Villa. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think when it comes down to personnel and players, I'd be confident that Aston Villa will get over the line. But then again, Fulham just switch it on like they did against Liverpool.
This is a big game for Aston Villa because United are starting to get one. Spurs have moved ahead of them. They could start, if they don't win games, they could get detached, and all of a sudden from people saying in December they could be challenging for the league, they might not even finish in the Champions League places. So it's a massive game.
I think it's a must win. They need teams around them to drop points to get a bit of comfort again, because I think if that doesn't work in their favour, I think they'll be the ones that are going to drop out of the top 4. Or I think they're out of the top 4 now.
They could miss out. They reckon 5th place could be enough, but obviously if United keep going, they could miss out in 5th as well, so we'll be 6th.
Yeah, so I mean, realistically, they need to win the game more than Fulham, but Craven Cottage is a very tough place to go, and the form that Fulham have been in, the style of play that they've been playing, if they play like they did against Liverpool, and it's going to be a tough game, so I'm going to go for a 2-2.
2-2. I just fancy Fulham. I'm going to agree with Darren in the chat here. I'm going to say 2-1 Fulham. Cracker game at 3 o'clock is Newcastle Bournemouth. Goals galore I'm expecting here, because Newcastle are having to score 3 and 4 goals every week to get results, and they've been doing that quite well. 4-4 Luton, 3-2 against Forest last week. Very different to the Newcastle we've seen last year, who were very strong at the back and really won games 1-0, 2-1. It seems to be the opposite this year. And they have looked a wee bit better going forward in recent weeks since they sort of fell away to the Cups, got some players back from injury. They obviously were really struck between December and January for players. But Bournemouth were on a great run, but they've come off the wagon a wee bit as well. But always a team that can score goals. So, I mean, I think these two teams just might try and score each other.
I watched a bit of the game against Nottingham Forest, and they didn't really impress me too much, if I'm being honest.
Bruno pulled them out.
They're too slow at moving the ball, and they don't look like they have enough conviction in their passes. And I think, like the same as Liverpool against Arsenal, a few misplaced passes, the opposition are going to be on you very quick. And if they come out starting like that, then I don't think that they have the willpower and the strength to pull through to actually get over the line. Bournemouth have some pretty good players, some very solid players. Solanke been brilliant the whole season. He gets a few chances. There's no doubt he's going to finish them. And I think I'm going to go for an away win.
An away one. What do you think? Many goals?
I'm going to go. I'm gonna go 2-1.
2-1. I'm gonna go 2-2. I think it could be on the right lines. Just think Newcastle at home they might find a second goal. But I think, as you say, they gave themselves a mountain to climb against Luton. They were 4-2 down. I don't think if they fall 2, I don't see them getting that back against Bournemouth. So it'll be interesting. 2-2 for me. Darren's going the opposite. He thinks big one for Newcastle. He's saying 4-1. But they are scoring goals, but just letting them on as well. We're just talking about them right. Forest, they're up next. They're playing West Ham. After that good start under Nuno, they've fallen back into that relegation fight. Again, they're an R team that can score goals. And let them. I think that's their third game under Nuno. They've been beat 3-2. So again, letting goals in. And West Ham at the minute are in dire straits, similar to the Roy Hodgson thing. Although West Ham are in a much better position in the league, fans aren't happy with the style of play. They want a more progressive manager with a project. Moyes' contract situation's running down. Has contracts up in the summer, still not being agreed yet if he's going to stay on or not. So it's a very tricky situation. And West Ham haven't won their last 7 or 8 games. So hard to predict this game, but I think home form might favour Forest.
I think it's a very emotional game. And what I mean by that is I watched Forest play a few times this season, and they're very emotional team.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotions running high around Moyes and West Ham at the minute.
You think this could be a great
battle? I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be very much powerhouse for 10 minutes, completely dead for 10 minutes, and that's kind of how I think the game's going to go. I'm going to go with a 1-1.
1-1. I'm just going to favour Forest being at home, and I'm going to go for a 2-1. Darren's Forest, but by 1 goal as well. He's saying 1-0 to Forest. So everyone thinking this will be quite close. The final 3 o'clock game, see Spurs take on Wolves. I mean, you know more about Big Irons than I did before the summer. Obviously, you follow in Celtic. Obviously, the Premier League's a lot more competitive, so I'm sure Celtic weren't involved in 3-2s and entertaining 2-2s every week. It was probably more they were beaten up. It was just quite. I mean, I seen them last season. They won loads of games, like 6, 7, 8. Mm-hmm. But obviously, the Premier League's very different. More teams with more quality can hurt you. And I mean, I have to say the games I've watched all season have been just fantastic entertainment. Probably we need to be a bit more controlled if we want to. I don't think we'll get any higher than 4th playing this so open unless we get a couple of better players on. But I mean, the game against Brighton last week was fantastic. 2 teams went at it for 90 minutes, and Spurs get the late goal at the end. The week before they conceded the late goal, and I think Ange says, "Don't be reading the late goals, us conceding them. We're going to score plenty of them." And I was reading that the team they've scored the most injury time winners this season, and they've also conceded the most injury time equalisers. So you just don't know what you're going to get, but it makes for great entertainment. And Wolves are an R team that are brilliant going forward. So I'm expecting a great game.
I think it's going to be a heavily scoring game, but I think Ange reminds me this year with Spurs, it's very similar to the first year Klopp had with Liverpool, in terms of very high scoring games, a lot of drama, and just getting over the line, because there's a fine line between failing and success, and if Liverpool didn't get top 4 that year, it would have been a very poor year. But I think Spurs need this one more than Wolves to stay in touch with top four. And I'm going for a 4-3.
A 4-3 Spurs one. See, you wouldn't be far off it because I'm telling you, these games can be quite mad involving Spurs. Just 10 or 15 minute spells, they can score 2-3 goals. And then they have 15 or 20 minutes where they just seem to be can't string a pass together and they're all over the show. So I think Ange at the minute is saying the players aren't at the level he wants them to be in because they're still getting used to it. And I think the fact they're only playing once a week as well, most weeks not in Europe, doesn't help in terms of match experience. They're getting a lot of training time. But just they can't really string 90 minutes together. And I think that always gives Wolves and opposition teams a chance. So I'm expecting to be quite tight like you are, but I just think Spurs with that extra quality up front will be too strong. So I'm going to go for a 3-2 Spurs one as well, quite high scoring. Darren saying 2-1 Spurs. Everyone expecting to be quite tight and entertaining. Moving on to 5:30, Man City take on Chelsea, possibly the glamour game of the weekend. Although Chelsea are not at the level of previous Chelsea teams, so Man City are seen as resounding favourites. But you can't take opposition lightly. We've seen Chelsea weren't great the other night, but still scored 3 goals and got players that can hurt you. They went to Villa and won 3-1 in the FA Cup. They drew with City 4-4 earlier in the season, so they are a team that can cause problems. But as you've seen at Anfield, they're a team that can sometimes not turn up, and against good teams, if you don't turn up, you can be blown away. And I mean, Chelsea have to turn up to get any result here at all.
I think it's going to be a case very much. It'll be close for a period of time. They fall away. I think it'll be 1-0 to Chelsea. And then from there, so they'll go on and win 3-1.
Darren's saying 5-0 City. He's not expecting Chelsea to do Liverpool any favours. See that
Yeah.
it could go one of them. If Chelsea Liverpool could have scored 10 against them at Anfield. And the worrying thing for Chelsea, I think, with the cup final next week, if they were to take a bad beating here, it would really bring morale down. Because I think they've been on a decent run, bar that they had a bit of a blip against Liverpool and then Wolves. But I think since kind of the turn of the year, they've been doing quite well. They're in the cup final. They're still in the FA Cup. They've recorded League Ones. And they've found themselves, I think, as high as up the table as they've been, on 9th or 10th for most of the season. They've been in the bottom half. So they've been on a decent run, but they've had a few stumbling blocks. But I see this as a major stumbling block. I think Chelsea will just be trying to get through this game without getting another beating like they did at Anfield. And I think City are very happy enough if they're winning a game. As you've seen, they'll just pass it around. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 Man City 1, but very controlled. Moving on to Sunday, Sheffield United take on Brighton. Sheffield United got a massive win against Luton last week against the odds. And Brighton will be seen as favourites here. But, I mean, I think that game last week, because Luton were seen as massive favourites, it played on the Sheffield United's hand. And look, they need points if they're going to have any chance of getting themselves into a relegation fight, because at the minute they're nailed on to go down. But Brighton are a team with a reputation that play great football and will be seen as favourites. So do you think that favours Sheffield United at home? The fact that they won't really be expected to have a lot of the possession and they can play in the counter-attack, and from set pieces, Brighton are quite vulnerable.
I definitely think it favours them, all right, because there's not a lot of pressure on Sheffield United. There's not a lot of expectation for them to come into this game and win it. Brighton. I think Brighton are just too strong a team, and too well run to go away to Sheffield United, knowing that their confidence is low. They're not playing great, and they are where they deserve to be at the moment. And I think it's just going to be. I think it'll just be one of those days where it'll just be one goal between. I think it'll be very much a dragged out game, because as of late, I don't think Brighton have been as impressive as they were.
No. Well, I mean, they're not. There was only I think their last away game they were beat 4-0 by Luton, so they're very. And then they go and beat Palace 4-1, and then at times last week against Spurs, they were very poor, and Spurs were dominating. And then like a tap, they were dominant Spurs, and they had a great chance. They won it. Fatty just put it wide. He should have scored, and then Spurs go down and score. I mean, seems at the minute they're very similar to Spurs in a way, where they can't string 90 minutes together, and if you're not on it, you can be punished.
Yeah, I think they'll be all right. I think they'll have maybe looked at the goals conceded against Luton and also against Spurs, and I think they'll be more cautious of that now. And against an opposition now it's not Luton in good form, and it's not Spurs, with just better players. I don't think Sheffield United will pose that much of a threat to them. But I don't think Brighton are going to play well. So I'm going to go for 2-1 Brighton.
2-1 Brighton. I just have an inkling that if Brighton don't get an early goal, I think if Brighton score first, they'll probably win 2 or 3. But I have a feeling that this could be frustrating, and I think Sheffield might give them a couple of problems. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Interesting game at 4:30, Luton against Man United. Now, interestingly, this is the last of the Big 6 games Luton have at home this season. The rest of their games now are away against the Big 6 because they've played Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea, and now United at home. And apart from Liverpool, that's the only game they picked a point up on. They were very unlucky, obviously conceding very late. But a lot of them games could have went the other way. They were 1-0 up against City, lost 2-1. Arsenal done them in the last minute. Last kick of the game, we have 4-3-1. Spurs beat them 1-0 by 10 men, and they were hanging on towards the end. Chelsea, they were 3-0 down, got back to 3-2, and they were peppering Chelsea at the end. And every one of their games against the teams has been super tight. So, they'll take confidence from that. And United are very much a similar team that, seen against Villa, they've done okay in spells, but other spells they were under pressure. So, Luton, I'll be looking at this as their last big chance to take a big scalp this season at home. And, I think they'll be fairly confident they can get a result because they have been in decent form, bar that result against Sheffield last week. But this is a different type of game. The pressure, that was probably the most pressure they've been under all season because the form they run, everyone was expecting to beat Sheffield United. This is a different game. United's coming under pressure, so it'll favour Luton that way.
I think so. They've been playing well, just not picking up the results that they should have been. United are very hit and miss, but what I've always learned with United, I think they always have a team that everyone expects will do well against, will do well against them or beat them, and then they always come out then with a 2-1 win or a 1-0 win, last minute goal. It's just typical United, and I, as a Liverpool fan, hate it. I just hate it because they're so. I actually
predicted United they won last week against all the boys on here that fancied Villa. Just had an inkling, but I've got the opposite this week, and I have fancy feeling for Luton this weekend.
I think with how well Luton's playing, I don't think that United will beat them. I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw, and I think United will get an equaliser late.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Luton one. Just have an inkling that they might get that result. They're due a result against one of them teams. They've been done so well this season in them games. And the final game, round off the weekend, is Everton Palace in the Monday Night Football. Who knows? Will Hodgson get another game in charge? Will the new manager be in place as of 8:30 tonight? We're none the wiser, unfortunately. So, God only knows. But, it would be great if Roy got another game and he went out on a highway of 1, I suppose, and they've steered away from relegation, and maybe that's the time they hang it up. But sometimes there's no fairy tales in football, and I just think the announcement will be done before then. So, how do you see it? The summarising Hodgson before we finish in this game. How do you see it going on Monday?
I don't think Palace have been impressive at all. I think there's too much going on in the background for them to be focused enough to go away to Everton and take a result. On the other hand,
a lot of pressure in Everton in this game, being at home as well. This is a big game. They're on that scrap, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But I think the problem with Everton is the games that they should have won. They shouldn't have lost against Spurs. It was a very, very tight game. They played well.
If you look at the game we watched, the Spurs Everton game, they should have won that game. The Spurs, and then the reverse game last week, or 2 weeks ago, when Everton only got an injury time equaliser, but they probably should have won that game too.
That's it. They're just too easy to cut open, and they're not disciplined enough in their defending. That's probably the biggest thing that they have against them. Whether Eze or Elise is fit could be a big turning point for them, for Palace, to get at them. But other than that, I just don't see Palace laying a finger on them, to be fair. So I'm going to go 2-0 Everton.
And for the first time out of the 10 games, I'm going to agree in this one. I'm going to go for 2-0 Everton as well. Keelan, it's been great having you on. I mean, what do you have coming up on the music scene? And I mean, I know you're out on the lookout for Liverpool Man City tickets, so are you trying to get over to Anfield before the end of the season?
I'm trying to get over for the 21st. My 21st on the 4th of March. So I finish up. I do Derek Ryan's weekend in the Abbey, and then I go from there, and I'm off for 2 weeks. So, anyone who has suggestions for any European party places that I could go for a couple of days before the 9th of March, give me a shout, and hopefully I'll be flying from a nice sunny holiday back to Liverpool for the Liverpool Man City game for Liverpool to hopefully beat them, and I'll have a brilliant 21st. So we're down in Lisbon tomorrow night, and then we're in Portlaoise Saturday night. Sunday night we're in Tralee, and so still busy. We got back after the 19 nighter on Monday, so just been doing wee bits and pieces about the house, but I'm destined for a holiday now at this point.
Brilliant, Keelan. Great to have you on as always. I'm going to be back on Tuesday with Owen going through all the results of the weekend and previewing the Champions League again. Arsenal in action next midweek, and I'm sure there'll be other news stories as we've seen today, 2 big ones that we discussed. So if you're new around here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. Keelan, brilliant having you on again, and thanks for it.
Thanks for having me on, Gareth.